I was 4,000 miles from home when my life collapsed into a single text message. The timestamp said 3:47 a.m. local time, but in Afghanistan, I'd been awake for hours already, gearing up for a reconnaissance mission. I almost didn't check it. The papers are signed. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. 17 words from my wife of 11 years, Melissa, informing me she'd filed for divorce while I was on my third deployment. My name is Michael Sullivan, captain with the Marine Corps Special Operations Command. I was 38 years old, and according to that text message, suddenly single. I read it twice, pocketed my phone, and continued preparations. 5 minutes later, I was boarding a helicopter with my team. No one noticed anything different about me. Military training teaches you to compartmentalize. I deal with my collapsing marriage after ensuring my men returned safely from our mission. That's what leaders do. The truth? I wasn't entirely surprised. The signs had been accumulating for months before deployment. Late nights at work, new friends I'd never met, password changes on her phone, decreased physical intimacy. The classic warning signs of a marriage in trouble. But, like many military relationships, ours had weathered difficult periods before, or so I thought. What Melissa didn't know was that I'd prepared for this possibility. Not because I wanted my marriage to fail, but because 15 years in special operations teaches you to anticipate contingencies. 6 months before deployment, I'd quietly established a separate bank account, transferred copies of important documents to my brother's safekeeping, photographed our home's contents and valuables. Small, quiet precautions that felt paranoid at the time. 2 hours after receiving that text, while providing overwatch for my team in a mountainous region north of Kandahar, a second message arrived. I've transferred my portion from our accounts. The house is on the market. I maintain my position, controlling my breathing as I watch through my scope. Inside, something cold and analytical awakened. This wasn't just a divorce. This was a tactical operation targeting me while I was deployed and unable to respond. She timed it perfectly. I met Melissa in 2012 during recovery from a training injury. She was a physical therapist at Walter Reed, smart and ambitious, with an easy laugh that made the grueling rehab sessions bearable. We were married 8 months later in a small ceremony at her parents' lake house in Michigan. For the first few years, things were good. We bought a modest home outside Camp Lejeune. She established a growing private practice. I continued advancing in my career despite the frequent deployments and training rotations that kept me away for months at a time. Military life isn't for everyone. My commanding officer warned me when I mentioned marriage. I should have paid more attention. After my second deployment to Iraq in 2018, something changed. Melissa became more distant, more focused on her career and social life. "I'm building something while you're gone," she explained. "What else am I supposed to do?" I understood her frustration. Military spouses often put their lives on hold, waiting for their partners to return. Melissa refused to wait. In early 2022, she suggested refinancing our home to fund an expansion of her practice. I agreed. Supporting her ambition seemed like the right thing to do. The paperwork was processed while I was in pre-deployment training. I signed the documents during a 48-hour leave, barely reading them in my haste to spend quality time with my wife before shipping out. That was my first mistake. 3 days after receiving the divorce text, I managed to secure a satellite connection and logged into our joint accounts. The balances confirmed my suspicions. $187,000 transferred out over the previous week. Nearly everything we had, except for approximately $2,300 remaining. I then checked our mortgage account, expecting to see the refinance details from earlier that year. Instead, I discovered a second refinance I'd never authorized, processed just 2 weeks after my deployment began. The new loan had extracted an additional $225,000 in equity from our home. My signature was on the documents, a signature I never provided. I sat back in the communication tent, stunned by the scale of what was happening. This wasn't an emotional decision. This was calculated, planned, executed with precision against a target of opportunity, me. Garrison, our team communication specialist, noticed my expression. "Everything good at home, Captain?" "Just some financial irregularities," I replied, closing the laptop. "Nothing that can't wait until we're stateside." He nodded, understanding the unspoken message. We were in the middle of an operation. Personal problems remained personal. That night, I wrote a careful email to my brother Ryan. an accountant in Charlotte. Need your help on a financial situation. Discretion essential. Possible fraud involving home refinance and bank transfers while deployed. Ryan's response came 6 hours later. On it. Already secured power of attorney documentation you left with me. Will contact JAG office and financial institutions tomorrow. Don't worry about anything but staying safe. For the first time since receiving that text, I felt a small measure of control returning. I had always planned for contingencies. Now those plans were activating. What Melissa failed to understand about me was fundamental. I never start conflicts, but I always finish them, and I finished them conclusively. 2 weeks later, between missions, I received a secure call from Ryan. "It's worse than we thought," he said, voice tight with controlled anger. "The refinance was processed through a company called Summit Financial. The loan officer, Thomas Wheeler, has processed similar loans for at least 8 other military families during deployments over the past 3 years." "Similar how?" I asked, already suspecting the answer. "Accelerated approval, minimal verification, high equity extraction. And get this, in 6 of those cases, the spouse filed for divorce within 3 months. The homes were sold quickly, often below market value. And Wheeler has connections to a real estate group called Precision Properties. They represented the buyers in 4 of those sales. Michael, this looks like a systematic operation targeting deployed service members." I processed this information with the same detached analysis I applied to intelligence reports. "Who else knows about this?" "I've briefed Major Winters at the JAG office. She's bringing in NCIS and potentially FBI due to the interstate nature of the fraud." "And Melissa?" A pause. "She's already put our house on the market. Precision Properties has the listing." "Of course they did." "Has she withdrawn the money from the refinance?" "Most of it. About $180,000 transferred to a new account in her name only. But here's where it gets interesting. Minus $45,000 went to a personal account belonging to Wheeler." The picture was becoming clearer. "Commission? That's what we suspect. There's more. Melissa's been seeing someone. A man named Wheeler. Thomas Wheeler, the loan officer. His brother Christopher, real estate attorney who works with Precision Properties." I closed my eyes, pieces falling into place. This wasn't just my wife leaving me. This was a coordinated financial operation, likely targeting multiple military families, with Melissa as either a willing participant or another victim. "Ryan, I need you to do something for me," I said, formulating a plan. "Our security system backs up to cloud storage. Access the footage from the past 3 months. Look for any visitors to the house, especially men matching Christopher Wheeler's description." "Already on it," Ryan replied. "And Michael, we're going to nail these bastards." I returned to the States 4 months later, 2 weeks earlier than scheduled. I didn't notify Melissa of my arrival. Instead, I checked into temporary military housing and contacted Major Winters at the JAG office. "Captain Sullivan," she greeted me, extending her hand. "I've been looking forward to meeting you in person." Her office walls displayed the evidence they'd accumulated: photographs, financial documents, timelines. One board featured 8 service members' photos, including mine. "These are the confirmed cases we've identified," she explained. "All deployed when the refinancing occurred. All with spouses who filed for divorce shortly after. All homes listed and sold through Precision Properties." "And the Wheelers?" "Thomas is cooperating with investigators in exchange for reduced charges. He's confirmed the operation was Christopher's idea, identifying military couples, approaching the spouses with financial opportunities during deployments, initiating relationships in some cases, then executing the refinancing and property sales." "And my wife?" I asked, the question I'd been avoiding. Major Winters hesitated. "Evidence suggests she became involved with Christopher Wheeler approximately 2 months before your deployment. Whether she was a knowing participant in the fraud or manipulated by Wheeler remains unclear." I nodded, processing this information. "What happens now?" "NCIS has built a solid case against Christopher Wheeler and the principals at Precision Properties. We're moving to freeze all assets connected to the scheme. As for your personal situation," she slid a folder across her desk. "These are your options regarding the fraudulent refinance and divorce proceedings." I opened the folder, scanning the documents. "You've been thorough. We protect our own, Captain. The Wheelers and their associates targeted the wrong community." I looked up at the wall of photos. 8 service members. 8 families. 8 betrayals orchestrated while we were serving our country. I want to meet with the others, I said. The other service members affected by this. Major Winters nodded. I thought you might. We've arranged a briefing tomorrow at 0900. The meeting room contained 6 men and 1 woman, all in uniform, representing every branch of the military. Different ranks, different backgrounds, united by a common experience of betrayal. Army Master Sergeant Wilson spoke first. My wife Emily insisted on handling all financial matters while I was deployed. Said she wanted to take that burden off my shoulders. Emptied accounts, refinanced the house, filed for divorce 2 months into my deployment. Marine Staff Sergeant Rodriguez nodded. Similar story. Jennifer started talking about investment opportunities right before I shipped out. By the time I returned, she'd moved to Florida with some real estate guy. One by one, they shared their stories. Different details, but the same pattern. The same players. The same outcomes. They targeted us because we were deployed, Navy Lieutenant Commander Torres said, anger evident in her voice. Because we couldn't fight back immediately. Because they thought we'd be too focused on our missions to notice what was happening back home. They were wrong, I replied simply. We spent the next 3 hours coordinating our responses, legal, financial, and personal. By the end, we have formed a support network and action plan that would have impressed any military strategist. As we adjourned, Army Captain Lawson approached me. Sullivan, I've been meaning to ask, how did you first detect something was wrong? Many of us didn't realize until we returned home. I considered the question. I always plan for contingencies, always maintain awareness, even of threats that haven't materialized yet. It's how I keep my team alive in the field. He nodded in understanding. Well, your situational awareness may have saved more than just your finances. You broke this thing open for all of us. We're not finished yet, I reminded him. This is just the first phase of the operation. 3 days later, I finally confronted Melissa. We met at a coffee shop near the base, neutral territory. She looked different somehow. Harder around the edges, or perhaps just revealed for who she truly was. You're back early, she said, no affection in her voice. Operational necessity, I replied evenly. We sat in silence for a moment, 2 strangers who once shared a life. I know about the Wheelers, I finally said, about the refinance fraud, about everything. Her expression flickered, surprise, then calculation. Michael, you have no idea what it's like being married to someone who's gone all the time. Christopher understood what I needed. Financial fraud? Identity theft? Targeting military families while they're deployed? That's what you needed? That's not what happened. She leaned forward. I was manipulated. Christopher said the refinance was standard procedure for military spouses to protect assets during deployment. I didn't know it was illegal. I studied her face, looking for the woman I married. The signature on the refinance documents. You forged it? She hesitated. Christopher had a notary who handled those details. And the $45,000 transferred to Thomas Wheeler? Another hesitation. Investment opportunity. Christopher said it would double within a year. And our savings? The $187,000 you transferred out of our joint accounts? That's my money too, Michael. I earned it supporting your career all these years. I nodded slowly, then placed a file folder on the table between us. This contains everything NCIS and the FBI have compiled about the Wheeler brothers' operation. Your text messages with Christopher. Security footage from our home showing multiple meetings with both brothers. Bank records showing transfers to accounts controlled by Precision Properties. Color drained from her face as I continued. Christopher has already accepted a plea deal. He's implicated you as a knowing participant in at least 3 cases of refinancing fraud targeting deployed service members. He's lying, she whispered. Maybe. But 8 military families were targeted. 8 service members fighting for their country came home to financial ruin and broken marriages. The investigation has frozen all assets connected to the scheme, including the accounts you established after draining ours. Her eyes widened. You can't do that. I didn't. The federal government did. Financial crimes against deployed military personnel carry enhanced penalties. I stood up. You'll be contacted by federal investigators within 48 hours. I suggest you retain independent legal counsel immediately. Michael, wait, she called as I turned to leave. What about us? The divorce? I paused. The divorce petition has been challenged on grounds of fraud. My attorney will contact yours. As for us, there is no us, Melissa. There's just the consequences of your actions. The legal proceedings unfolded over the next 8 months. Christopher Wheeler received 12 years for orchestrating the scheme. Thomas Wheeler, 7 years for his role in processing fraudulent loans. 4 employees of Precision Properties received various sentences. Melissa avoided jail time by cooperating with prosecutors and agreeing to full financial restitution. The divorce was finalized on my terms: no alimony, no claims against my military pension, full admission of her participation in the fraud scheme. The 8 affected service members formed a support group that eventually expanded into a nonprofit organization, providing financial and legal assistance to military personnel facing similar situations. We called it Operation Homefront, protecting those who protect the nation. As for me, I sold our house once it was released from the legal proceedings. Couldn't stand living in those rooms filled with betrayal and lies. I purchased a small cabin near Lake Tahoe, 2 bedrooms, spacious deck, mountains visible from every window, somewhere to decompress between deployments. I adopted a Belgian Malinois from a military working dog program, retired due to injury, but still alert and loyal. Named him Scout. We spent mornings hiking the mountain trails, evenings sitting on the deck watching the sunset. 1 year after returning from Afghanistan, I received an email from Army Captain Lawson. Sullivan, thought you'd want to know. Through Operation Homefront, we've identified 3 more cases matching the Wheeler pattern in the San Diego area. Different players, same scheme. NCIS is investigating based on our information. Your contingency planning continues to protect others. Lawson. I sat on my deck that evening with Scout at my feet, watching the sun disappear behind the mountains. In special operations, we have a saying: calm seas never made skilled sailors. The storm I'd weathered had revealed strengths I didn't know I possessed and vulnerabilities I needed to address. The betrayal still ached sometimes in quiet moments, not because I missed Melissa, but because I mourned the person I thought she was, the life I thought we had built. My satellite phone buzzed, a message from my commanding officer about an upcoming deployment. I read it, then gazed back at the mountains. Tomorrow, I would begin preparations. Tonight, I would enjoy this moment of peace in a place that was truly mine. Because some things can't be forged, stolen, or betrayed. Some things like integrity, resilience, and the brotherhood formed through shared hardship remain unassailable, even when everything else is lost. In the end, the most valuable lesson wasn't about betrayal or even justice. It was about preparation, about maintaining awareness even when threats aren't visible, about creating a paper trail that tells the truth when others try to write a different story, and about the strength that comes from weathering storms you never saw coming